you know, a decent amount of attention, as we all know. And so we go and I tell all the kids all together, hey kids, you know, mommy's got a baby in her belly, you know, how exciting. And they were amped, like seriously, like this is the most incredible thing ever. We can't wait to be big brothers. You know, again, the only thing is we just don't want another boy. And I was like, oh, really? And so we kind of let it go, and I was like, honey, I'm gonna pull him aside. We're gonna get this sorted out, you know? And so a couple days later, I'm driving with my oldest boy, and I said, hey man, how you feeling about big brotherhood, you know, again, you know? And he's like, Dad, I so wanna be a big brother again. Like, I'm so excited about it. We just don't need any more boys. We've got you, there's the three of us, we don't need any more boys. I mean, that was literally the conversation. So then I'm like, I'm gonna go to my 6-year-old, all right? Go to my 6-year-old, hey man, I mean, how you feeling? He's like, great. I just want a sister, that's all. I go to my 3-year-old, I mean, this kid can't even speak English yet, you know? I'm like, I can convince this kid. And he's like, Dad, yeah, so excited to be a big brother. And he literally looks at me with these beautiful golden eyes. He's like, I just want a sister. And at this point, I'm like, don't you guys understand how this works? You know, I mean, you know, so at that point, I'm like, you know what is the likelihood and the chance that you can actually have a different gender after 3 years, after 3 of the same gender? So I'm like, I'll Google it. I Google, what are the chances? I kid you not, it pops up at like 8%. And I'm like, you know what? Google lies to us anyway, I'm not believing that trash. And so, you know, we get to a point of finding out the gender, and we're big into celebrations at our household, right? So we do the whole cake thing. There's a blue or pink inside. And so we get the cake, and look, if the kids were psyched out of their minds, but I'm sitting there going, please don't be blue, please don't be blue, please don't be, you know. And if there was ever a need for a fidget spinner, it was my 8-year-old. He's like, Dad, yeah, let's do it, I'm ready, I think I'm good, you know. And then I made this, I don't know why, I was like, all right, well, you want to cut the cake? So he has the cake, he has the knife, and sure enough, I'm like, all right, go ahead and cut. And he cuts into it, and I kid you not, I don't like the color pink, but I did it that moment. It was just, it was amazing. Yeah, and so we have little Evie Joy is her name. She's a little sweetheart. But I will say this, I mean, and I hope that this is okay to say to other parents here, but you know, after 3 of the same gender, people were psyched that we had a little girl. And I love that. But I immediately after little Evie was born, had people come in and was like, isn't it just so different to have a little girl? And I was like, no, at 3 weeks, no, that's not a whole lot different at all. I have to put a bow on that girl's head for people to know that she's a girl in public, you know? And then at 6 months, she looked at me and she said, the first words that she said were Dada. And we were at the altar and I was giving her away to her husband, you know? It was, so I love being a husband to Courtney. I love being a dad. It's a lot of fun. It's quite an interesting experience, trying to tour and all that sort of stuff, but it's a joy. It's a joy and a privilege. But I think for all of us, particularly as parents, over the last 1.5 years, I think we would all say that the last 1.5 years, a little bumpy. Right? There's been some things that have taken place in all of our lives that have been bumpy. It's just difficult, you know, whether or not it be, you know, whatever the circumstances might be. It's not been smooth for anyone. And if it has been smooth for you, I'd love to meet you off the show. But my personal bump took place actually about 4 or 5 months ago. I actually had to have throat surgery, and I was feeling pretty good about the surgery. Pretty confident, and I started, you know, going around to some friends and asking for prayer. And there was a certain date. I said, hey, I'd love your prayer for this date. And some of these folks, they were like, oh man, we'll pray for you, And they started saying things like, I mean, you know, this surgery can be a little risky. I mean, you could lose your voice if if something goes wrong. And I was like, what? You're a terrible friend. Thank you for that. And but the truth was, they were telling the truth, and there were some risks involved. And like I said, I felt good, go have the surgery. And the problem with the surgery is, once you have the surgery, you can't speak for 5 days. And it was in that moment where some of these other things that I didn't really take much, I didn't think that much about, like, what if I couldn't sing anymore? I mean, I got into this because I love to sing. Even as a little boy, I've always loved to sing. And what if that was taken from me? What if I couldn't speak to you like I am tonight? What if I couldn't write songs anymore? And then I got into a point where I started asking an even deeper question, and I was like, do I actually need it? Do I need to do this? to feel fulfilled? Or who am I if it's all taken away? And I tell you what, when you pray prayers like that, when you can't speak for 5 days, you hear God in a very, very clear way. And I felt God say to me very clearly, man, Luke, it's never been about what you could accomplish for me. It's never been about a song. It's never been about a voice. It's never been about the mistakes that you've made in the past. It's never been about the future things that you may or may not do. I just want you to know I love you. I love you. I love you. And so look, I don't know what your bump was over the last year and a half. Maybe you did lose that job. Maybe the school situation has been incredibly difficult. Maybe you lost someone that you thought would be here with you tonight. I mean, the circumstances for every one of us are so different. Maybe you've been crazy successful, but you're empty. Maybe your marriage is strained. Maybe your family is not going the way that you thought it would. And I think when we have those thoughts and we have those moments of failure, we have those moments of insecurity, we stop blaming ourselves. We start looking at ourselves and, man, I'm not good, I'm not this, And where do you go with those questions? Because you got to go somewhere. And so I'm so grateful to be up here, to be able to tell you, to say that there is a God that knows a deep, deep love. And it's the type of love that truly God only knows.
Ooh.